Hare Krishna, welcome back to Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita reading session. Rudradeep Nimai Prabhu, are you there?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, I didn't hear any music today, so I was wondering whether you're still there or not. Okay.
Okay.
First, I'll chant the prayers and then we'll resume the reading. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Caitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanditam Tam Srivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Namam Vishnu Padai Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swami Nitinamine Nama Acharya Padayana Taikapa Pradayane Gaura Katha Damadaya Nagra Gramatarine Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Gopi Paranadhanadase Itinamine Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripasindubhyevacha Paritanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Bande Shri Gurudintarinam Yatkripatamaham Bande Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Katanchana Smriti Yasmin Dushkaram Tukaram Bhavet Smriti Pritam Syat Sri Chaitanyam Namam. Rudradeep Nimai Prabhu, see, there was a request that to post the class that was recorded on the 11th of July, 11th of June, that has still not been posted. 18th has been posted and the previous week has been posted, but the class on the 11th of June has still not been posted. Hare Krishna.
Yes, I'm hearing.
Yeah. So after this class, could you kindly look into that and just post that also?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
11th of June.
11th of June.
Okay. Can you share screen? You know where to from where we stopped last time? Are we supposed to start from the new chapter? Or, I mean, let me just look into my book. Where do we stop? Yes, that's right. We're supposed to start from a new chapter. Any volunteers to read? Can you hear me? Hare Krishna?
Yes, Prabhu. I'm hearing.
Okay. I think you can yourself go ahead and read.
Okay, Prabhu. Starting.
You're a little away from the microphone, I guess.
This is okay?
It could be better.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, better. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Chapter 44, Let There Be a Temple. Srila Prabhupada's first two in both places, devotees had arranged many outside speaking engagements,
Yeah,
as
your
well
voice
as
is breaking. I don't know if it's my this thing, or is it because of the I mean, are you speaking?
no,
Okay. Can you start again from the beginning?
yeah. Srila Prabhupada's first two stops in Europe were Roma and Geneva. In both places, devotees had arranged many outside speaking engagements, as well as meetings with important guests in Prabhupada's room. The Rome temple was a small house at a busy intersection near Piazza Lodi. Traffic was relentless, its noise penetrating into Prabhupada's quarters within the temple building. I hope the noise of the traffic doesn't bother you too much, Dhananjay, the temple president, apologized. No, Prabhupada replied. This sound is very pleasing. It means this is a very important part of Rome. This is a very good location. At the Villa Borghese, in a hotel hall built built to seat 500 people, Prabhupada spoke before a crowd of more than 1,000. Prabhupada was pleased by the enthusiastic gathering of Italians who behaved as if coming to receive the blessings of the Pope. They were pious, but they were not being taught properly how to engage in Lord's service. This, he said, was the one defect. Although the devotees had arranged a meeting between Prabhupada and the Pope was ill, so Prabhupada met with Cardinal Pignedoli, who was in charge of the non-Christian liaisons. In flying to Geneva, Prabhupada and his secretaries viewed the snow-covered Alps. This is a very dangerous spot, Prabhupada remarked as the plane flew over the alpine peaks. Many planes have crashed here. In Geneva, the mayor offered Prabhupada an official reception. Everything went smoothly according to the diplomatic protocol. Afterward, the mayor asked frankly, if anyone became like you are saying, wouldn't the economy be threatened? Prabhupada said no. And he quoted the same verse he had given the press reporters in Hyderabad. Annad Bhavanti Bhutani. Grains are produced by rains, which are produced by sacrifice to Vishnu. Prabhupada proposed that if men cultivated their own land and kept cows, they would have no economic problems. Krishna conscious devotees could work in all ways of life within society. In fact, they could teach how to organize society according to God-conscious principles. While returning to the temple, Prabhupada asked, were my answers all right? One of the devotees replied that he thought the mayor considered the devotees beggars. Therefore, Prabhupada said, I told him about tilling the land. We're not beggars. We're giving the highest knowledge. I gave him a copy of Bhagavad Gita, the highest knowledge. He could not give us anything. So who is the beggar? Prabhupada accepted an invitation to Geneva to speak at the World Health Organization of the United Nations. He also met at the temple with ideologist Jean Herbert. And
not ideologist, indologist. Not ideologist, indologist.
Indologist Jean Herbert.
Indologist means those who study about India. They are called indologists.
Indologist Jean Herbert, and with several scientists and professors. One of Prabhupada's leading disciples, Karandar, came to visit him in Geneva. Karandar had left the movement 4 months before, being unable to follow strictly the 4 regulated principles. Up to that time, he had been the leading manager of ISKCON in the United States, and Prabhupada had depended heavily on him to deal with his Dai Nippon printers, to coordinate book distribution, and to collect funds from all the temples in the US since leaving. Karandar had felt great remorse.
Can you just slow down a bit? I mean, because it's becoming too continuous. Can you just slow down a bit, you're reading.
Okay. Karandar had felt great remorse, had a change of heart, and had telegrammed Prabhupada that he wanted to come and surrender at his lotus feet once again. Srila Prabhupada had welcomed him back, and Karandar had flown immediately to Geneva. After speaking for a few hours with Karandar, Prabhupada decided he would be just the man to take up the heavy responsibilities of GBC of India. He should make his headquarters in Bombay and help the devotees there get the no objection certificate. It was a bold move for Prabhupada, based on trust in his disciple and on the immediate need for Krishna conscious leadership in India. He had his secretary immediately type a letter to the leaders of the temple in Hyderabad, Bombay, Calcutta, Mayapur, Delhi, and Vrindavan, authorizing Karandar's appointment as the new governing body commissioner of India. It is a great relief for me, wrote Prabhupada. Please give him all cooperation and work together for advancement of our mission to make the people of India Krishna conscious. Paris, June 8. 2,500 people in the audience, as well as 50 devotees on stage, awaited Srila Prabhupada's appearance at La Salle Pleyel in Paris. After Kirtan, Prabhupada began his lecture by having a devotee read in the Bible from the Gospel of St. John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. Prabhupada then spoke on the power of the holy name as transcendental sound. Many persons in the crowd were student radicals who specifically came to cause trouble, and Srila Prabhupada gave an analogy that agitated them, comparing the conditioned soul's existence in the material world to a citizen's punishment for breaking the laws of the state. As soon as Prabhupada said that disobedient citizens would be punished, the students began to boo and yell. He was speaking in English, and his disciple, Jyotirmayi Devidasi, was translating each line over the microphone. When the students began shouting, Prabhupada turned to Jyotirmayi and asked, "What are they saying?" "They don't like the example you have given," she replied, "because they don't like the government here." Srila Prabhupada then spoke back to the challengers. "You may not like it, but the fact of the matter is that if you break the laws, you will be punished." He was speaking of the absolute law of karma. but the student radicals took it politically. They continued shouting at Prabhupada. One man jumped up and shouted loudly in French, "You may be speaking spiritual things, but one thing I would never do is sit on a throne and demand that people bow down to my feet." At these words, the audience began applauding and whistling and chanting the words, "Partere, partere, partere." Prabhupada again asked for a translation. Jyotirmai told him they were shouting, "Get down." Returning the challenge, Prabhupada spoke strongly into the microphone. "I could speak to you from the floor also, but that does not mean you would understand any better. If you know the science of God consciousness, then you can also sit on the Vyasasana and they will bow down at your feet." Prabhupada's strong reply brought silence to the hall, as if his answer had satisfied the challengers. Suddenly, a black man jumped up on the stage and addressed himself to the theater audience. He began by speaking in defense of Prabhupada and the devotees, but then he began speaking against them. Finally, he began speaking incoherently, and Prabhupada turned to his disciple on stage and said, "All right, have kirtan." The devotees rose with drums and kartals and began a rousing kirtan. Most of the people in the attendance joined also, and the protests were drowned out. After the tumultuous scene, while riding back to the temple, Prabhupada said that in the future they should not give him a Vyasasana to sit on before public audiences. In the future, they should give him a simple cushion to sit on. He also doubted the value of explaining philosophy to such large audiences. For the balance of his stay in Paris, he spoke to smaller groups who were actually interested to hear him. Frankfurt, July 18. When Srila Prabhupada arrived, Hamsaduta and a large group of devotees accompanied him in a procession of 20 cars and vans to the outskirts of the city to the ISKCON center. School's Retroshov, a castle on a hill. My heart becomes engladdened when I hear a mridanga in a German village, Srila Prabhupada said. The devotees showed Prabhupada the sklos. The central room was a large ground floor hall with the ceiling 2 stories high. A second floor gallery overlooking the hall led to Prabhupada's quarters. While Srila Prabhupada was in his room, the assembled devotees from the centers all over Germany and from Amsterdam gathered downstairs, where they held a wildly enthusiastic kirtan. After half an hour, Hamsaduta appeared at the railing and mentioned the devotees to come up to Prabhupada's room.
Motion the devotees.
Somehow the devotees.
Motion to the devotees. The same.
Motioned to the devotees to come up to Prabhupada's room. Somehow the devotees managed to squeeze into Prabhupada's quarters or to at least stand in the hallway and watch as Prabhupada sat, relaxed, speaking informally. I worked hard my whole life, he said. I never like to sit idle. So devotional service means to be always engaged in Krishna's service, not like the servants in Calcutta. They get an order and then they go to the Dalhousie Park and sleep all day. Then when they come back late, the master asks them, "Where have you been all day?" And they reply, "I was busy working for you." Not like that, you see. Prabhupada laughed, and the devotees also began laughing. Although most of them understood very little English, Prabhupada then quoted Lord Chaitanya's prophecy that his name would be heard in every town and village. The devotees chanting in the villages of Germany, he said, was fulfilling that prediction. But unfortunately, he added, people object, just like the man who is being saved from danger. He gave the example of a man on a roof flying a kite, while another man, seeing him about to walk off the roof, called out to him, "Look out, you're in danger." The man on the roof became angry and said, "What? You have checked my movement?" Any gentleman, Prabhupada said, will speak out if he sees another in danger, even though the one in danger may object. Prabhupada's German devotees accompanied him on speaking engagements in nearby towns, and although he was not very enthusiastically received by most people, the devotees became more dedicated than ever to give their lives in the service of Prabhupada and Krishna. For his public engagements, he sat on a small cushion, so not to again arouse the indignation of people who could not understand the tradition of the Guru. At one engagement, a wealthy businessman, two of whose sons were Prabhupada's disciples, questioned Prabhupada, "How can a crocodile of the Nile swim in a German river? In other words, how can you transplant a foreign culture with Indian ways and dress to Germany? You can become Krishna conscious in a tie and suit," Prabhupada replied. "Isn't this chanting self-hypnosis?" asked another man. "No," Prabhupada replied staunchly. "It is purification." And so it went, mostly challenges with few sincere inquiries. While Prabhupada was in Frankfurt, two interested, distinguished visitors came to see him. A Benedictine monk, Father Emmanuel, and Baron von Durkheim, a prominent German philosopher and spiritual writer. Both men were attracted by Prabhupada's philosophical explanations and accompanied him on his morning walks for several days. Srila Prabhupada's next stop was Australia. He had worked out a schedule whereby he would attend 3 Ratha Yatra festivals in 3 cities, first in Melbourne, then a week later in Chicago, then 2 days later in San Francisco. He would then go to Los Angeles, Dallas, and New Vrindavan, timing everything for his return to Vrindavan by July 25, for the Krishna Balaram Mandir opening 2 weeks later. He was now regularly referring to the opening date of Krishna Balaram Mandir as a time when many devotees from around the world could gather at Vrindavan to be with him. On June 17, he had written from Germany to Jayahari in London. "I am presently traveling through Europe and in the past weeks have held many programs in Rome, Geneva, Paris, and now Germany. I therefore have no time to carefully study and decide on your proposals. The best thing is if you can come and meet with me personally after I have finished this present tour. I'm planning to go to Vrindavan for Janmashtami, for the opening installation ceremonies of our Radha Krishna Balaram temple. If you can come to see me in Vrindavan, I would be glad to discuss and plan with you what is best for your devotional service engagement." After a 24-hour flight from Frankfurt to Australia, Prabhupada was picked up at the Melbourne airport by devotees in a borrowed Rolls-Royce. The newspaper reporters were quick to notice the car. "Divine Grace comes rolling in," read one headline. The story began.
Not rolling in, rolling in.
Oh, the Divine Grace.
Rolls-Royce, right? It's a Rolls-Royce, no?
Yeah.
So rolling in.
"Divine Grace comes rolling in," read one headline. The story began. 60 young Hare Krishna devotees yesterday welcomed their earthly leader to the city with obeisances, but official Melbourne met him coolly. Another story began. A chauffeur-driven Rolls-Royce will meet the founder of the materialistic shunning Hare Krishna sect, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, at Cholo Marine today. Another newspaper showed a large picture of Srila Prabhupada smiling and bore the headline, "His Divine Grace is here to hound us." The story began. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder of Hare Krishna movement, is here to save us from the dog's life. Unless we cultivate some spiritual knowledge, warns His Divine Grace, we are left with the dog's mentality. News coverage of Prabhupada's visit didn't end with reports on his arrival at the airport. The next day, while the devotees were preparing the Rath Yatra carts, an extraordinary incident resulted in the front page headlines in the Herald. Krishna sect uses canopy to save women from blazing office. Monks from the Hare Krishna sect held the painted canvas canopy of the religious wagon as a safety net to five screaming women. So 5 screaming women could jump to safety from a blazing 3-story building in Melbourne yesterday. The article was accompanied by 2 large pictures showing Hare Krishnas holding the large canvas canopy. Although the news media was unable to understand the disciples' love for Srila Prabhupada, the rescue was something everyone could relate to, wrote a columnist in the Australian. The fact that makes the rescue doubly impressive was the use of a holy rug, not just an ordinary bedroom one, for the rescue mission. The rug was being sewn for use at a religious festival in Melbourne tomorrow. The columnist coyly speculated whether the devotee's holy rug was still usable in the religious festival as a canopy for His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. You see, the Swami is not one of your ordinary Swamis. He's the founder of the Hare Krishna, and the group describes him as the Lord of the universe. Devotee spokesman had reported, however, that the rug would be used in the festival. The incident proved to be good publicity for the festival the next day. When Lord Jagannath, the Lord of the universe, and his pure devotee Srila Prabhupada held the Rath Yatra procession through the main streets of Melbourne. Regarding media coverage, Prabhupada had said that simply the printing of the holy names, Hare Krishna, greatly benefited the readers, regardless of whether the names were mentioned in reverence or disrespect. Amoga. Prabhupada met Lord Jagannath at City Square by the town hall. There was a Vyasasan on the cart, but he chose to walk before the carts, in front of the deity of Lord Caitanya. Prabhupada was wearing a gold wool cap, a peach-colored turtleneck jersey, and an effulgent silk saffron dhoti and kurta. Around his shoulders, he wore a white silk chadar, and he wore a garland of orchids and many yellow flowers. It was winter in Melbourne and quite cold, but he put his hands up and chanted and danced. We had about 11 new mridangas. There were also 3 men playing big bass drums, and we all formed a circle around Srila Prabhupada. He was ecstatic, all playing drums, chanting Hare Krishna, and Prabhupada himself chanting in the parade. Going on through the city, Prabhupada marched with transcendental power, just taking over the city, walking right down the Swanson Street. Sabhapati. From the point of view of weather, it wasn't a very nice day. Prabhupada met the Rath cart at the corner of the Swanson Street and Burke Street, and he led from there on. He walked about 2 miles, and all the devotees had been having kirtan in 3 different groups. But when Prabhupada met the Rath Yatra procession, where we all gathered around him, He was leading the procession. Behind him was a 14-foot murti of Lord Caitanya, followed by 3 Rath carts. Every now and again in the procession, Prabhupada would stop and turn around and stare up at Lord Caitanya. He would simply stand and look up at Lord Caitanya for a minute or two, and then he would turn around again and lead the procession. It was such an ecstatic experience that one gets the feeling that Prabhupada had conquered Melbourne and Australia. Gauragopal. I was right next to Prabhupada through the whole ceremony, playing the drum. He particularly liked to sing one tune through the whole time. He put his hands up in the air. He was dancing. Vaikuntanath. The Rath Yatra parade was going, and Prabhupada was walking, and at one point he asked me, "Get me some water." I became panic-stricken because there was nowhere to get water. So I just depended on Krishna and ran over to a house as fast as I could and asked the people for some water. They gave it, and I ran back to Srila Prabhupada. When I was getting that water, though, there was a big rainbow out. There was this big rainbow out, and it had actually began to rain a little. It was a very vivid rainbow, and the end of the rainbow came right down on the top of a huge building where the Rath Yatra ended. Hari sorry. There is a huge place, the exhibition buildings, and we had rented one section of it where the roof was about 80 feet high. So the Ratha carts were taken in with the tops lowered, and then the tops were put up again inside the hall. All 3 Ratha carts were brought in, and the tops were pulled up. Then Srila Prabhupada came in, and everyone was seated. About 1,000 people were there. Srila Prabhupada sat up on the Vyasasana on the Rath cart itself and gave a lecture from there. Sahapati. Although it was a cold and rather nasty day, there were 1,000 people in that exhibition building. Prabhupada's lecture was brief. He thanked everyone for coming along and joining the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He told everyone he was very appreciative of how they had come to see Lord Jagannath and of how they were taking part. He said that actually all these activities of singing and dancing were due to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Melbourne newspapers duly reported the Rath Yatra, a day of symbols and chants. Chariots topped the Swami, one newspaper reported. Don't let Krishna alarm you, cleric. The sight of the Hare Krishna youth in Melbourne streets should not alarm Australians or cause them to mock the Rev. Gordon Powell said in the Scots Church yesterday. He said the sect could be a sign of the swing of the pendulum back to spiritual values and traditional virtues on the part of modern youth. The article praised the devotees' reaction against extreme materialism and reported the events of the Rath Yatra parade. Reverend Powell, head bishop of the Anglican Church in Melbourne, had paid Srila Prabhupada a visit, and this had resulted in the bishop's Sunday sermon comment that Hare Krishnas were not alarming. Srila Prabhupada took the bishop's comments as very significant. During his week stay in Melbourne, Prabhupada attended a large program at the town hall where he inspired a long and ecstatic kirtan, with 1,000 people dancing in a circle before the deity of Lord Chaitanya. He also visited St. Pascal's Teaching College, a Franciscan seminary, and was very well received by the monks there. The seminarians asked intelligent philosophical questions, one of them inquiring about what Prabhupada thought of their founder, Saint Francis of Assisi. The seminarian described briefly how Saint Francis saw everything in the universe in relation to God and addressed nature's creations as brother tree, brother bird, and so on. Saint Francis's attitude, Prabhupada replied, was first-class God consciousness. That same evening, in the room, Prabhupada met with the Vicar General of the Roman Catholic Church in Australia, Reverend J.A. Kelly. Prabhupada played a recording of his morning lecture at St. Pascal's, and afterward the Reverend asked if Prabhupada would pose with him for a picture to be printed in their religious periodical. Again, the newspapers picked it up. Swami spreads unity message. The normally serene cloisters of the Roman Catholic Yara Theological Union echoed to the chants of Hare Krishna yesterday. It does not matter what religion you belong to, as long as you love and serve God, said His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We must be delivered from the disease of materialism, or else there will always be want. After the discussion, the president of the Institute's Student Representative Council, Franciscan Seminarian Patrick McClure, 25, said that there seemed to be a consensus in many areas. In particular, we agree with the need to reject materialism, he said. Mr. McClure said the informal meeting reflected an openness and tolerance in the church. Maybe they have something to tell us, he said. July 1. In Melbourne, Prabhupada dictated a letter to Gurudas in Vrindavan. It was less than 6 weeks before the scheduled meeting of the Krishna Balaram Mandir. And Srila Prabhupada had not received regular reports from Vrindavan. He was concerned that everything be ready on time for a gorgeous ceremony. My dear Gurudas, please accept my blessings. I'm spending my last 2 days in Australia, and after this I shall go to the USA. In the meantime, I wish to give you some instructions regarding our Janmashtami installation in Vrindavan. The main thing is, ceremony shall be conducted by our own men. We do not have to be dependent on taking help from persons who will not even eat with us, thinking us inferior. All over the world, in Paris, New York, Australia, etc., our men and women are worshipping the deity very nicely, and I'm very proud of their worship. There is no reason why we have to think we are dependent on any Indian Goswami in order to conduct our ceremony. So you understand this and be convinced of it, and let them come as invited, but we shall conduct the affair ourselves. You can also arrange to have the Har Govinda dramatical players and our own players as well. There should be abundant prasadam for whoever comes all day long. The kitchen should go on. So there is sufficient stock of rice. So see, there is sufficient stock of rice, atta, ghee. The life members should be specially cared for and invited. We shall manage our own affairs. If they come, that is good, but if not, we shall manage. From our side, everything should be done nicely. All big officers in Mathura and Vrindavan should be invited, Goswamis and God brothers also. Also invite local Marwadis and invite Parthak also. Practically by distributing a general invitation card, we shall invite everyone. All the inhabitants of Vrindavan will be invited to come and see the deity and take prasadam. There should be special arrangement for life members, Mr. Birla, and many other respectable visitors. There is no question of money. Let it be a first-class 1A arrangement. Krishna will provide all expenditures, so try to make it gorgeous. Gorgeous means sufficient stock of prasadam and temple decorations as gorgeous as possible. The internal management of dressing can be done by Yamuna Madira, and Jayatirtha, they are all expert. The Shastric direction can be from Pradyumna. Also, Mr. Jayapurna of Karnapur came to see me, so invitation should be extended to him. Invite all local ashrams and sannyasis as well. I do not hear of Pranava. I sent him a telegram, but there is no reply. The whole management should be done combinedly. Do not fight amongst yourselves. That is my only anxiety. I shall leave for Vrindavan by 25th July. In the meantime, reply to me at LA. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. While Gurudas got direct instruction on the ceremony, almost every other devotee Prabhupada wrote received his personal invitation to the Krishna Balaram Mandir opening in a letter to Kyavana Maharaj in West Africa. Prabhupada wrote, "You want to see me, and I also have some important things to discuss with you. So the best thing is if we meet at the end of July in Vrindavan, India. Today I'm leaving for United States, so attend Rath Yatra in Chicago and San Francisco, but at the end of July I will reach Vrindavan. We are having a very big festival there on Janmashtami, when we will open our Krishna Balaram temple by installing the deities. So you must also attend to help in conducting the ceremonies. I will therefore see you in Vrindavan by the end of July." Srila Prabhupada's engagement at La Trobe University in Melbourne was like a repeat of the unpleasant incident with the radicals at the La Soleil Pale in Paris. It was again a large free admission audience of students, and again the disciples had prepared Srila Prabhupada the standard Vyasasana. Devotees held a kirtan on stage and introduced Srila Prabhupada, who began speaking very basically about the distinction between soul and the body and how this education is required for all people. But after no more than 10 minutes, a young man in the audience stood up and began to shout profanities at Srila Prabhupada. "And how do you explain your Rolls Royce?" he added. The audience, which had been quiet until the interruption, now became noisy and restless. Three of Srila Prabhupada's more aggressive disciples left the front row and went to the back, where the man was shouting. Meanwhile, Prabhupada stopped speaking and sat tolerantly, waiting. The shouting stopped, and he began again. "As I was explaining, in the material life, we have been changing from one body to another. This is not a very good condition of life. Nobody wants to die, but he is forced to die." After 5 minutes, the abusive language again broke out. This time, Srila Prabhupada's three disciples pushed the shouters out the back door. In the fight, one of the students pulled a knife from his boot, but a devotee disarmed him. The atmosphere inside the auditorium was tense, and many people were talking loudly, so some got up to leave. Madhu Vishwas Swami, taking the microphone, pleaded with the students to remain calm and continuing hearing from Srila Prabhupada. Some students.
Can you just stop? Can you just stop? Pause for a few minutes. Yeah. So this has been a continuing. You could say not a theme, but a repetition of events as it happened in Paris. So we note how Srila Prabhupada was not defiant in the sense of how a person's inflated ego would be hurt. Rather, Prabhupada was a pure devotee. So he said that, okay, if they're objecting to me sitting on a Vyasasana, just get me a cushion. So that was Prabhupada's mood. He was not offended by how they were disregarding him, how they were critical of him sitting on the Vyasasana. So Prabhupada's point was, Prabhupada was very fixed on carrying out the instructions of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. So he was willing to sit even on a simple cushion to deliver the message of Krishna consciousness as ordered by his Guru Maharaj. So this is the spirit of Krishna consciousness, that in all circumstances, we are trying to see how to get the message across. We are not agitated when people try to agitate us. Now here it says how Madhudvisha Prabhu, or Swami at that point, tried to intervene. If you actually see in the Prabhupada Memories videos, which have been released by Yadubara Prabhu, 12 volumes, this incident is captured live. There, I mean, I found it very striking. I found it very amazing, the manner in which Madhudisha Swami responds. He picks up and he says, we have tried to, we are sending, we are presenting a sober message. We're trying to be reasonable. We're trying to, universities play for education. We're trying to present this in an educational mode. But then he also says, if you want violence, we will meet violence with violence. You know, so, I mean, he really stands up for Prabhupada, and he really defends Prabhupada, and he tries to simultaneously appeal to the audience to maintain calm and try to hear patiently. And we also notice how during this period that Prabhupada is traveling in Europe, Prabhupada is focused on the Krishna Balaram temple installation ceremony. You know, so he is writing to Guru Das Prabhu about the different aspects of the preparation, and we note that Prabhupada he's got a certain sense of pride in a positive sense, that by following the instructions of his spiritual master, these Vaishnavas have been made, and they're all bona fide Vaishnavas. So he's not so concerned whether the Goswamis of Vrindavan accept his followers or not. He is confident of the fact that his disciples have been accepted by his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, and they are bona fide Vaishnavas according to the teachings of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He's supremely confident of that fact, and he's satisfied with that fact. He is not also trying to gain recognition from the Goswamis. He says, if it comes, fine. If it doesn't matter. So Prabhupada is very fixed in the conception of the absolute truth as presented by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and brought down in that Parampara by great acharyas, and specifically to Srila Prabhupada by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura. Prabhupada encourages everyone to work hard. We see how he gives the example of workers. It's not a question of, okay, we have been assigned something, somehow or other, we just make believe that we have done it, and somehow we gain our access into gain our access to spiritual advancement or spiritual or the goal of life. No, we have to work hard. So Prabhupada himself set that example of working hard for Krishna. So Prabhupada gives the example that he says that I never like to sit idle. Then he gives the example of how the servants go to Dalhousie Park and sleep all day. Then when they come back late, the master asks them, where have you been all day? And they reply, I was busy working for you. Not like that, you see. So Prabhupada begins to laugh. So this is our system. We actually work hard with our mind, body, and words. And Prabhupada is not very insistent on the dress of dhoti and kurtas and things like that. You can see how Prabhupada, when he's speaking to that was it a monk or what was that? No, it is a businessman who speaks about can a crocodile of the Nile swim in a German river? So Prabhupada says you can become Krishna conscious in a tie or suit. And when he asks about self-hypnosis, no, another man asks about self-hypnosis. Prabhupada is very strong. We should be confident that what we're doing is process of purification. It is cleansing of the heart. That we should be clear and convinced, and we should have that realization. Then we'll be able to present that. Otherwise, if we start worrying, if we use this self-hypnosis, if people are saying is self-hypnosis, how to respond? We should be confident that it is a process of purification. Then we'll be able to present that fact also with confidence. And Australians have a very interesting sense of humor. So Prabhupada, when he reached Australia, when they asked him, what have you come to beg from us? Prabhupada said, I've come to save you from a cat and dog's life. That's why that headline in a newspaper read as His Divine Grace is here to hound us. So we see how during those days, these days it's a little bit difficult that you would find both sides of the reporting, where on the one hand, even though they reported negatively or cynically or critically by saying His Divine Grace comes rolling in, but at the same time, when the devotees used the canopy to save women women who were stuck in a building that was on fire, they held the canopy so that the women could jump onto that canopy, and they saved the lives of these women. So the newspapers actually reported that also. So they were not like as polarized as it is today. Today, if someone doesn't like you, they have nothing good to say about you. So, it's a little bit different journalism in those days. We can see that. And Prabhupada actually believed, Prabhupada had this, it was not just he spoke something to convince the Franciscans, Francis of Assisi, that he was first class God conscious. He was that Francis of Assisi was a first class God conscious person. Prabhupada actually believed it. Prabhupada actually, that was how he ascertained the position of Francis of Assisi, because he was a vegetarian and he saw everything and everyone as a manifestation of God's energy and potency. So Prabhupada actually appreciated it. Okay, so let's just, after we finish this section on this thing, I just wanted to pause a moment. I saw Madhudvisha Swami when we read, taking the microphone, pleading with the students to remain calm and continue hearing from Srila Prabhupada. I just reminded of, if you can get a chance, please watch that live video. You'll get awestruck by the dedication that Madhudvisha Swami and the love that he displays, the dedication that Madhudvisha Swami had for Srila Prabhupada, and the love that he displays in standing up and defending Srila Prabhupada. Then you just begin to think, this is the Hare Krishna movement. This is the spirit of the Hare Krishna movement. Okay, please continue. And once you finish this section, then I'll pause and just ask for some reflections or thoughts or questions or so on. Yes, please continue.
Some students in the audience seemed on the verge of violence, and the devotees feared for Prabhupada's safety, but Prabhupada was willing to continue. He called for questions. Student: I am a Christian, and I would like to know what is your opinion of Jesus Christ. Srila Prabhupada: we respect Jesus Christ as you do, because he is representative of God, Son of God. We are also speaking of God, so we respect him with our greatest veneration. Question: you're a son of Jesus too? Srila Prabhupada: yes, I am a servant of Jesus. I don't say I am Jesus. Question: I want to know if you have the power of Jesus. Srila Prabhupada: no, I have no power of Jesus. Question: well, I have got the power of Jesus, laughter, because I am Christian. Srila Prabhupada: that's all right. You're a Christian, we're Christian. It is particularly the same thing, practically the same thing, laughter and applause. Student: I have another question. I believe Jesus is coming back and not Krishna. What are you guys going to do when you see Jesus? Laughter. Srila Prabhupada, when he is coming, welcome, we shall welcome. It is very good news that Jesus is coming. Student, Jesus had no reputation. He wore sandals and was crucified between two thieves. And your spirituality is on a Rolls Royce and a padded seat. And you are all into money. You Krishnas, you want money. Srila Prabhupada, I don't want money. Student, and you say violence is violence. That's what you believe. Jesus turned the other cheek and he expected his followers to.
I think this is a response to what Madhudvisha Swami said. We will meet violence with violence. And this is a response to that. Anyway, I think so. Please go ahead.
Applause. Srila Prabhupada, this Krishna conscious movement is not a sentimental religious system. It is a science and philosophy. Prabhupada explained that understanding the science of God was transcendental to Christianity or Hinduism. The real goal was to learn to love God. Second student, I have a question about Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti stresses that when you are speaking in the Western world, you should speak and present yourself as a Westerner, not as an Indian or as you would speak in India. Instead of sitting on a raised dais and dressing in robes of a monk, Krishnamurti would say, dress in Western clothes and sit on a chair. What is your opinion of this? Srila Prabhupada. Actually, a God-conscious person is neither a Westerner nor Easterner. So anywhere the devotee goes, as they receive him, he accepts. The devotees have arranged the raised seat, so I have accepted the raised seat. If they wanted me to sit down on the floor, I would have gladly accepted. I have no objection to this or that. But as devotees receive and give honor, this is good for them. That is good for them. But because actually we should honor the Supreme Lord God and his representative. Nowadays, it is different. Students are not learning to honor, but that is not actually the system. According to the Vedic system, the representative of God must be honored as God. Another student, loudly. Do you consider your movement the major form of enlightenment emanating from the United States today? What particular role does your movement play in the White House Psychological Warfare Department? Will you be coming to our 4th of July demonstration against the United States this year to take up the real political issues? Again, many students began shouting. Madhudvisha Swami took the microphone. I can answer if you like. Our movement is not from the United States. If you have some paranoia that everything is coming from the United States, well, that is your hang-up, not mine. Applause. And second of all, our spiritual master came to the United States to start this Krishna conscious movement because he got a free ticket on the boat to go there. If you would have sent him a free ticket, he probably would have come to Australia first. So he's trying to spread love of God. He's not trying to start any kind of political movement. He's trying to spark a revolutionary consciousness. I think you are also interested in revolution. We are interested in revolution also, but we are interested in revolution which will help people to feel peace themselves, whether they're communists or Marxists or whatever it is you like. We're trying to help people attain happiness, whether they are. Madhudvisha Swami's remarks triggered the largest vocal protests yet. The commotion rose as students all over the hall began to shout. There was no possibility of peaceful philosophical discussion. The devotees' greatest concern became getting Prabhupada out of the hall unharmed. Prabhupada rose from his Vyasasana and escorted by his disciples, left by a side exit. A large crowd of students had gathered outside the door as Prabhupada emerged. But he entered his waiting car without incident. As he rode slowly through the cluster of students, a girl kicked at the car with her bare-booted foot. And as the devotees were getting into their vans, students threw stones. Finally, as the devotees drove off the campus, they had to pass under an elevated walkway where some waiting students threw black paint down onto the vans. Riding in his car, Prabhupada was mostly silent, but he seemed disgusted. He said that in the future he would only give lectures in classes where he was invited, no more wide open lectures.
Okay, so we can pause for some time now. Any thoughts, reflections, questions? Yeah, if there are no thoughts or reflections or questions, then we can continue. Rudradeep Nimai Prabhu, you can go ahead.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada flew from Melbourne to Chicago, stopping overnight in Hawaii. His schedule allowed him only a couple of days in Chicago, where he would attend the city's first Rath Yatra festival. He was very keen on holding Rath Yatras in big cities around the world. And although large crowds often could not hear Krishna conscious philosophy without becoming restless, angered, or even violent, everyone could enjoy and benefit from a Rath Yatra festival. Srila Prabhupada had written in the Nectar of Devotion, quoting from the Bhavishya Puran, a person who follows the Rath Yatra cart when the Rathas pass in front or from behind, even if born of a lowly family, will surely be elevated to the position of achieving equal opulence with Krishna. In Jagannath Puri, India, the original home of Jagannath worship, a Westerner could see Lord Jagannath only during the yearly Rath Yatra festival, when the deity would come out of the temple and ride on his cart. And besides, very few Westerners would actually go to Jagannath Puri. But Srila Prabhupada and his Krishna conscious movement were making Lord Jagannath available to everyone by bringing the Rath Yatra right down the main street of their city. It may seem odd to the average American or Australian, but from the viewpoint of Lord Jagannath and his followers, it was perfectly proper. Lord Jagannath, the Lord of the universe, was for everyone, everywhere, regardless of the nationality or religion. This year's festival, 1974, would mark the 8th annual San Francisco Rath Yatra. And now, at Prabhupada's urging, the devotees in more and more cities were beginning to hold the festival. Srila Prabhupada wanted to give utmost prestige to this kind of preaching. And so he had gone out of his way to come to Chicago, where he had never been before, just to ride an hour down State Street on Lord Jagannath's cart. Prabhupada felt that his disciples, by holding Rath Yatras in cities on every continent, would defeat false religion, and spontaneously people would be attracted to Krishna. Simply by enjoying a festival of singing, dancing, feasting, and seeing the Lord. Prabhupada stood in downtown Chicago before the large, elaborately decorated car, eager to ascend to the seat where he would ride during the procession. But there was no ladder, so he waited while devotees ran to a hardware store and got one. Then he mounted the cart and sat on his Vyasasana. The city was busy with thousands of shoppers and workers. Many members of Chicago's large Indian community had turned out to receive the Lord's blessings and to observe this tradition so well known to them. And hundreds of Prabhupada's disciples from throughout the Midwest had gathered to pull the ropes of the cart, lead kirtans, and distribute prasadam and Back to God magazines as the big cart piled down one of the busiest streets in America. Although several policemen on the motorcycle led the procession, their mood was hardly that the king of Orissa, who had traditionally led the Rath Yatra procession in India. Each year, the king would present himself as a menial servant, leading the parade by sweeping the road before Lord Jagannath with a gold-handled broom. The Chicago police, however, seemed intent only in getting the parade over with as soon as possible. With stern anxiety, they dedicated themselves to keeping open the flow of ordinary automobile traffic. They acknowledged that the devotees had an official permit for the parade, but they continually prodded them to pull the cart faster, threatening to terminate the parade entirely. But by Krishna's grace, however, everyone, including the Chicago police, became satisfied and the procession moved along peacefully for several miles. Finally arriving at the Civic Center Plaza, amid skyscrapers and city noise, Srila Prabhupada addressed the outdoor audience. Immediately following the lecture, the devotees began prasadam distribution and kirtan. Prabhupada was pleased by the festival. San Francisco, July 7th. Thousands followed the three carts for several miles through Golden Gate Park. Srila Prabhupada, riding on the second cart beneath the deity of Subhadra, wore the same golden wool cap he had worn in Australia, a white bulky knit sweater, and a garland of red roses. Despite his recent extensive traveling, he was alert and well. He looked out at the sea of devotees and parade followers and took great satisfaction in the transcendental scene. In the speech before a crowd of 10,000, Prabhupada said that the Americans should lead the world in propagating Krishna consciousness. I know that all American ladies and gentlemen here are educated and intelligent, he said, and I am very much obliged to the Americans who have helped me make this movement popular all over the world. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu first introduced the Hare Krishna movement, he said, Bharata Bhumi te hoila manusha janma jar, janma sarthak kori, karo paro upakar. He thus expressed his desire by saying that anyone who has taken birth as a human being in Bharatvarsha or India should understand that the Krishna conscious movement and spread it all over the world for the benefit of all humanity. He also predicted that in all the villages and towns of the entire world, the Krishna conscious movement will be known. So, with the cooperation of you young Americans who are kindly helping to spread this movement, it is now factually becoming well known all over the world. I recently went to Melbourne, Australia, where we had held a similar festival in which many thousands of people joined and chanted and danced with us. Then I went to Chicago, where we held the same ceremony. Now this morning I have come here and I'm so glad to see that you are also joining this movement. Prabhupada's fingers tapped lightly against his kartals as he spoke, his eyes half closed. He chose his words with confidence, and those words echoed across the meadow. Prabhupada requested his audience not to think that Krishna consciousness was sectarian. It was meant for everyone because the real nature of the self was spiritual. Chanting the holy name and dancing, he said, were not ordinary. It is open to everyone who will simply chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You are generally young, whereas I am an old man who may die at any moment. Therefore, I request you to take this movement seriously, understand it yourselves, and then preach it throughout your country. People outside America generally follow and imitate what America does. I'm traveling all over the world, and everywhere I see other countries building skyscrapers and other ways imitating your country. Therefore, if you kindly become Krishna conscious and chant and dance in ecstasy, in emotional love of God, the entire world will follow you. Thus, the entire world can become Vaikuntha, a spiritual world in which there will be no more trouble. Thank you very much. Gurudas had sent a letter to all ISKCON centers inviting devotees to attend the opening of the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan. He had invited life members from Bombay and Calcutta and had reserved cars for them on the trains. Prabhupada was also inviting his disciples to come to Vrindavan for Janmashtami. Lecturing before hundreds of devotees in Los Angeles, he said, I invite all of you to come to Vrindavan to the opening of Krishna Balaram Mandir. Prabhupada had also mailed invitation to his godbrothers, and when one of them, Sridhar Maharaj of Navadip, accepted the invitation, Srila Prabhupada replied, assuring him of comfortable accommodations and suggesting the easiest way to travel from Kolkata to Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada also told Sridhar Maharaj of his preaching. You will be glad to know that our books are selling very nicely. Last year, we sold about 4 million books. And this year, within 6 months, we have completed last year's quota. And therefore, we can reasonably expect to double the sale of last year. The only difficulty is that we're expanded worldwide organization. And it requires a very acute management to keep up the status quo. So, by Krishna's grace, everything is going on nicely. Regarding preaching tour, it has become a little difficult for me because I have got the same heart trouble as you have. And still I am moving just to encourage these young boys and girls who are working on my behalf. On July 15th, only 10 days before Prabhupada's proposed arrival in Vrindavan, he wrote almost identical letters to his sannyasi disciples, inviting them to come and resolve the many personal matters and items of business that had been pending during his busy tour. I cordially invite you to attend our opening ceremony in Vrindavan because all of our sannyasis will be present there. You may come there as a regular sannyasi and take part. That is my desire. When Karamdara, the newly appointed GBC for India, began to express doubts that everything would be ready on time, Prabhupada replied from Los Angeles, the festival must be gorgeously done, should not be poor. If there is a scarcity of money, it will be supplied. There must be full prasadam for all the guests. You plan for that, and I will supply the funds. Complete prasad distribution must go on. Regarding the temple not being finished on time, that is your responsibility. What can I do? Although Prabhupada had responded to Karandara forcefully, the note of uncertainty from his head manager in India disturbed him. He wrote to Suravi, who was in charge of Vrindavan construction, "I'm a little agitated in mind because Karandara's letter says that there may be some work to be done even during the time of our festival." While in Los Angeles, Prabhupada also received word from the London Rath Yatra scheduled for later that month had been cancelled by the local authorities. The previous year's parade, the officials said, had seriously interfered with traffic. Prabhupada insisted that the devotees protest this unreasonable ruling. It is a religious discrimination, he said, and he advised that sympathetic Indians in London approach the ambassador and request him to present the matter before the Queen. The recent statements of the Reverend Powell of Melbourne could be used to demonstrate the Christians should not be alarmed by the Krishna conscious movement. The police objection means that the whole religious ceremony should be stopped. Prabhupada challenged, "What is this? Simply for some technical mistake, now they will stop our whole religious ceremony?" Prabhupada said that if the city continued to prohibit the parade, the devotees should erect a stationary cart in the Hyde Park and hold a festival there without a procession. After holding our ceremony, said Prabhupada, we shall take the deity in a palanquin to go to Trafalgar Square. The Rath will stay, it will not move. But we shall take the deities on palanquin and go to Trafalgar Square. In this way, take police permission, and after going there along with the ceremony, protest. They cannot object. But the Ratha must be seen, and the people must know that the rascal police government has stopped it. Prabhupada repeated his instructions several times. He was in the grave mood as he instructed his followers. My Guru Maharaj used to say, Prana ache janrashe hetu prachar. One who has got life, he can preach. The dead man cannot preach. So you become with life, not like dead men. Just like all my god brothers, they are dead men, and therefore they are envious of my activities. They have no life. If you want to make an easygoing life, showing the deity and then sleep, then it is a failure movement. Prabhupada could not bear to hear that such an important festival as Rath Yatra was being stopped. We shall abide by all the rules, he said, but we must have this festival. They saw last year that in the open sunshine, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people stood in Trafalgar Square for 3 hours, and they did not go to the church. So they have seen there is something. Otherwise, how people have taken so much interest? Brahmananda Swami. Yes, just like in San Francisco paper, they admitted this is the most popular festival. Prabhupada. Yes, 15,000 people attended my lecture silently in San Francisco. So they are seeing there is something in the movement. But sometimes some parties do not want us to go on without objection, or else they will be finished. On the day of Prabhupada's departure from Los Angeles, he addressed the assembled devotees in the temple, encouraging them to remain faithful in Krishna consciousness. And he revealed his own feelings of urgency. His constant traveling was for his disciples, so they would remain strong. And if they remained strong following the simple programs he had given them, then their success was guaranteed. Some way or other, he said, we have introduced this program in the Western countries, and you are so intelligent, you have very soon captured it. So stick to the standard, then your life is successful. It is not at all difficult, but don't deviate. Then you are pakka. Pakka means solid. Mam eva ye prapadyante, mayam etam tarantite. If you remain solid in Krishna consciousness, then Maya cannot touch you. So, this is my request. I'm traveling all over the world. I'm going to see how things are going in Dallas and in New Vrindavan. So my touring is natural. I have started this movement. I want to see that it is going nicely. Don't deviate. This is my only request. Prabhupada began to cry and simply concluded, then you will remain solid. Thank you very much. New Vrindavan, July 18, 1974. A letter from Karandara reached Srila Prabhupada informing him of his resignation as GBC for India. The responsibilities were too great for him, for he only recently come back to Krishna consciousness. He would continue to follow the spiritual program, but he could not be the GBC again. Srila Prabhupada was set back, and before several GBC men in his room, at New Vrindavan, he asked, "What to do? What shall we do? So maybe I should just give up these projects in India." But Srila Prabhupada, the devotees replied, "Those India projects are very dear to you. But what can be done?" Prabhupada asked. Except for Gurudas, none of the devotees in Vrindavan thought that the building would be ready by the scheduled grand opening. Work was going along slowly as usual, and except for the DT hall area, the land was still a construction site. There were no altars, no DTs. They just thought Gurudas so feared displeasing Prabhupada that he could not bear to admit that the building would not be ready. The date had been set, and Prabhupada did not want excuses. It has to be done by Janmashtami, he wrote. There is no question of delay. Gurudas admitted that the temple construction wouldn't be completely finished by Janmashtami, but he reasoned that the opening ceremony could still take place even if the final touches of the temple weren't done. Because there was no regular GBC secretary for India, Prabhupada did not receive accurate reports on the Vrindavan temple construction. When Tamal Krishna Goswami had left in April to preach in the West, several months had passed before Prabhupada had appointed a replacement, Karandara. Now, after only a few weeks, Karandara had resigned. Gurudas's version, therefore, was the only one Prabhupada had received. The end of July grew near. The devotees prepared to travel to Vrindavan for a fiasco.
Okay, I think we'll stop here for today's session. We can see how Prabhupada was not willing to concede to the authorities in London when they tried to stop the procession. Prabhupada was always a fighter. He would never concede if any program in relation to the Lord was being stopped or hindered. So he came up with an idea how they could have the Rath Yatra. He said, let's have the Rath Yatra going, but without the Rath moving, let's keep the Rath in Hyde Park and take a palanquin through and carry a palanquin to Trafalgar Square. So Prabhupada is like that. I mean, Prabhupada is never willing to give up. He would ensure that something is done. If not the full thing, he gave arguments why the full Rath Yatra should be done. If not, then Prabhupada is still not willing to concede. So this is the determination of a pure devotee. Once a pure devotee makes up his mind to Krishna, makes up his mind that he wants to serve Krishna in a particular way, he does it, whatever it is. So there can be no material obstacle which will stand in his way. Somehow or the other, he attempts to fulfill the plan to serve the Lord. And you see here how Prabhupada only request is don't deviate, and he cries. So actually, if you look at the Krishna consciousness movement, the teaching that Prabhupada has given us in his books, they're very simple, very simple. So quite often I find it very bewildering that even something as simple as that, why is it that people still deviate? Because it's very easy not to deviate actually. But I guess Maya is quite strong that despite Prabhupada's clear, unambiguous, explicit instructions, still Maya is so powerful that it can overcome our intelligence. So therefore, we need to be constantly immersed in studying Prabhupada's book so that our intelligence, Maya is overwhelmed. Maya can be overpowered rather by our intelligence, which is imbued with Krishna consciousness through Srila Prabhupada's books. And Prabhupada, I mean, even when he faces setbacks, he's only talking about, okay, so maybe I should just give up these projects in India. So he's willing to accept whatever is the plan of the Lord. Of course, he's not going to give up, but even if it comes to that, he's willing to accept even that. That is the nature of a pure devotee. He attempts wholeheartedly, 100%. But if it does not happen, he just takes it as Krishna's will. Any thoughts, questions, reflections? We've come to the end of today's reading session. So it's time for questions, thoughts, reflections. Looks like there are none. Probably there is a lot of content which you're trying to soak in. And if you do have some realizations, so probably as you chew on what you heard today, probably you could share them in the next class. In the Rath Yatra festival, what has happened is in India, the authorities of Jagannath Puri temple have insisted that ISKCON in India hold Rath Yatra only during the period of the Rath Yatra festival. So from the time of the forward Rath Yatra to the return Rath Yatra, any day in between that is acceptable. So in India, all the Rath Yatras now happen during that phase. And this year, by Lord Jagannath's mercy, I had the fortune to attend the return Rath Yatra at Jagannath Puri. I mean, you could clearly see that this is the greatest gathering of people on the earth. Millions of people. And it's a spectacle, at least once in a lifetime. It's worth seeing that spectacle. Gunaraj Prabhu is also a participant in today's class. He attended the forward Rath Yatra. I was there for the return Rath Yatra. I mean, it's the whole atmosphere is very electrifying. Lord Jagannath, and you can clearly see this is the Lord of the universe who's coming on his chariot. It's quite an amazing festival. Very ecstatic too. You don't have to struggle to be ecstatic. The ecstasy comes spontaneously. Especially if you read the Caitanya Charitamrita of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, dancing in front of those carts. It takes you to a whole different level of consciousness.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanavad Pranam, Sugash Prabhupada. I have a couple of questions. Firstly, just on this Rath Yatra festival, is it bigger than the Kumbh Mela gathering then? You said it's the largest congregation. I thought Kumbh Mela was supposed to be the biggest.
I would think so. I mean, yes, Kumbh Mela, but I guess the difference here is that this is like for example, I would say it is the for example, Rath Yatra, the gathering begins in the morning, and it goes on all the way till evening. It's like there is a focus in the gathering for a certain amount of time. Even Kumbh Mela, that the bathing hours are very, I think it's 1 hour or something, right? When the nectar drops and something like that. But here it's like you find that energy and that focus for hours together, hours together. I mean, in that sense, I guess it's the largest. Yes. I mean, yeah. I mean, I didn't. I mean, when I said, I was more speaking of it in more, not in a literal mathematical sense, but even in I guess even in Mecca, when they gather, that's also a pretty huge gathering. But for such an extended period of time, like morning, let's say 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. till all the way to evening, 12 hours of focused, such a large gathering. That is perhaps, although in the Kumbh Mela people stay there in the camps, but there is no event like this which brings together people in a focused manner for so many hours non-stop.
Thank you,
Where
Prabhu.
everybody's focus is on one event. Of course, the dropping of the nectar is there, but that's as far as I know, it's for 1 hour, right?
Please pray that we can participate and take the mercy of the Lord on one within our lifetime to attend the Rath Yatra in Jagannath Puri.
Yeah, please, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think my realization of I mean, the kind of circumstances that I was in, it looked fairly impossible to go this year, but somehow or the other, I just had a desire, and then it just happened. It just happened. I had consistent desire, no matter what the obstacle was. I remember I started planning for it. Especially my second son was saying he had not visited Jagannath Puri at all, so he was talking about going to Jagannath Puri. There are so many complex factors. My parents were ill and were at home. How to leave them and go? There are many things which are. But at all points in time, I made. I mean, I was determined. I want to go somehow or the other. But so my realization is that if you have the desire consistently, then Lord Jagannath will somehow or the other mystically make it happen. Even today, as I'm speaking, I still find it hard to believe that I actually went and attended it. So, I'm not exaggerating, it's a fact. I just feel, how did it happen? It happened somehow.
Thank you. I have another question. We read earlier in Australia, when Prabhupada was there on a number of occasions, there was quite a lot of violent outbursts and sort of profanity used, etc.
Yeah.
We didn't hear in the Lilamrita so much about Prabhupada's reaction or thoughts or whatever. I think it was kind of quite summarizedly done without actually going into detail as to what Prabhupada's reaction was to this. Do you know of any of the devotees have given commentary on terms of what and how?
Yeah. I mean, in fact, you can see it live in the sense that we watch that Remembering Prabhupada. Actually, I'll ask my son. He knows which. Now I'll come back to you with which volume it is there. About if you watch that, it's on YouTube. You can see Prabhupada actually physically how he's reacting to it. He's very grave, very sober, and he just asks, "What are they saying?" That's it. That's like whatever. So, and Bhadidisha Swami is the one who actually defends Prabhupada. And as you can see, I mean, from whatever I could see from the Lilamrita, Prabhupada was not interested in talking to an audience. That's what he says, right? We'll go where we are invited and things like that. That was Prabhupada's reaction. But during the protest, Prabhupada is very grave. Prabhupada very sober, very grave. You can see that physically live.
And presumably with the incident where the student pulled a knife, nobody was injured then, I presume.
That I don't think that incident is captured on tape. I didn't see. I don't remember seeing that incident. Yeah. I mean, it's not the whole thing, but then it's one segment of it. I don't know if they have the full tape or not, but that's the segment of it which they display. You can see the students protesting and Madhudisha Swami standing up, and he speaks about this, that how we have come here with not a desire to agitate or create a commotion, and we have come here. But then he says, if violence is what you're proposing, then we'll meet violence with violence. He says that actually.
Thank you, Prabhu. So thank you for a wonderful class.
Next week, I'll definitely tell you which this episode it is. There are 12 episodes. Episodes in the sense that like recollections from different diverse disciples. I think you must have seen this. Different disciples of Prabhupada. It's in a chronological order, those episodes, as it happened.
Yes, I've seen some of them, not all of them. I think they were initially they were being released in volume by volume, and now I think there may be all of it. So I've ended up collecting when they were available sporadically. I've collected 2 or 3, but I don't think I have all of it. So
it's quite fascinating to watch it in a sequence. I mean, because of my son, I got the opportunity to watch it. He would play it during breakfast, especially. So I began to watch it sequentially. Very, very absorbing. Very, very absorbing. It's there on YouTube. I'll ask him which section is it where Prabhupada is dealing with the audience in Australia, and I'll get back to you next week. Leela Madhuri Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Bro. Would like to hear more about the statement which you made. A pure devotee, when he decides to serve Krishna in such a way, doesn't matter what happens, he will continue. Could you please elaborate it? Because recently, I don't know whether I heard it in this session or somewhere else, that a pure devotee writes something in a pencil, but gives an eraser to Krishna, because Krishna decides what should happen.
No. Prabhupada has not given that up. Prabhupada did say at times that man proposes, God disposes. But on the other hand, he also says that we don't make plans. He says that devotees in the Krishna consciousness, we don't make plans. We try to understand what is Krishna's plan and act according to that. So that is the primary thing which all the acharyas have demonstrated to us, that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the one who made the plan, that this movement should spread to the entire world. And so all the acharyas, they were like puppets in the hands of Krishna in trying to fulfill that plan of the Lord. Prabhupada also says that I'm a puppet in your hands. So what does it actually mean? That it's not that they had a plan and then Prabhupada had another plan. It's not that Krishna had one plan, Prabhupada had another plan and things like that. No. Prabhupada is trying to fulfill the plan of the Lord. The plan of the Lord is revealed through the spiritual master. For example, in the case of Prabhupada, it is Bhakshila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur who said that this is the plan for you. You go to the West and preach in the English-speaking language. So that was the plan. Now, within that, there could be specific areas where Prabhupada attempted to do different things. Prabhupada did experiment with different things. But on the other hand, it is like there is also with the sanction of Krishna. Like Prabhupada said that Krishna dictated the books. Now, when it says Krishna dictated the books, what it essentially means is that Krishna is telling him what should be written here. But Krishna is not necessarily telling him every single word of it, because he also called this his personal ecstasies, right? So there is a certain flavor which is imparted. There is a certain content and there is a certain flavor. There is a certain So Krishna dictated the contents, but the flavor was infused by Srila Prabhupada. So it's a combination of, that's what it means. It's a Krishna and his pure devotee. Otherwise, Prabhupada would just be like a robo. It's not, I mean, all souls are not, are conscious living beings. So it's a combination of the Lord's desire and the jiva's desire to serve the Lord. You know? So it works in a very inconceivable manner, in the sense that, yes, we could say Krishna dictated. At the same time, we could also say that these are Prabhupada's personal ecstasies. These are the realizations. So both of them are simultaneously true. So the same thing applies to how Prabhupada conducted the Krishna consciousness movement. It is by Krishna's plan and also by Prabhupada's personal, explorations of how to do things.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And one more question. Just now you shared your personal experience of attending Jagannath Rath Yatra, Return Rath Yatra.
Yes.
You made a statement that if we have a desire, consistently, if we are desiring to get it, one or the other way, it will happen. So is it not like forcing Krishna to do something?
No, if the desire is, I mean, first of all, when we desire something, we should also pray to the Lord. If this desire is in line with pure devotional service, may it happen. It's not that. So if it does not, I mean, if the desire is not in line with pure devotional service, it's not going to happen. So we have this thing. Okay, I mean, we can desire in such a manner that it does not impede in. I mean, we can have desires which are aligned with pure devotional service, which help us to practice devotional service with more eagerness and more enthusiasm. And one of the desires, I mean, these are all spiritual desires: to attend Mangalarati, to attend the Rath Yatra of the Lord. These are all, I mean, sanctioned, bona fide desires. But at the same time, we don't want to do it in a manner that, for example, if I have some service that is pending here or whatever, I cannot be desiring, okay, I want to go and attend the Rath Yatra of the Lord. So, whereas there is something urgent and pending that's here. So we always pray to the Lord that may my desires which are bona fide, of course, to attend the Lord is a bona fide desire, may it be fulfilled if you so desire, when you so desire. That's it. If you so desire, but we should have the desire. It's not that we just faintly desire and just, okay, just let it go. No, we should have that strong desire that I want to attend Mangalarati, I want to do this, I want to do that. We should have the strong desire. Without that strength of desire, why would Krishna feel inclined to fulfill it? I mean, provided, I mean, of course, our mood should be that as long as, I mean, in terms of priority, see, everything is a priority, right? I mean, in terms of whatever is spiritual, you could say is a priority. How do you order the priorities? That the Lord does for us. The Lord does for us. That's what I meant to say, that the Lord will fulfill definitely, but according to, we should allow him to order the priorities. Yeah, that's what I meant. We should not try to order the priority ourselves. Lord will do it. So one should just have the desire. That's it. When it's going to happen, whenever the Lord desires. And of course, you may have all spiritual desires also, but it's not necessary that the Lord is obliged to fulfill all of them. He may not fulfill something also. So what? We're still satisfied with the Lord.
Can I ask one more question, Prabhu?
Yes, sir.
Continuously, I'm hearing that when we are serving the Lord, we should give over 100% of our capacity. So how do I know that I have given my 100% in that?
Even Radharani does not think that she has given her 100%. So we can never come to the conclusion that we have given 100%. When Srimati Radharani doesn't think that she has given 100%. So what to speak of us? She's also trying to think, how can I improve more? How can I improve more? How can I improve more? So spiritual life, by definition, is no beginning, no end, in the sense that it's unlimited. So there's nothing like we have. I mean, we have given 100%. Yeah, we can try to give 100% in the sense that when we think that we have reached 99, then we'll think there's another 99 left. Then when we reach that 99, we'll think, oh, there's another 99 left. Like that's the nature of spiritual life. We go from 99 to 99. We don't go from 99 to 100. 199 to another 99 to another 99, higher and higher and higher, keep on going like that. That's inconceivable for the material mind because we are conditioned. All matter is limited, but spiritual life is unlimited. The very nature of Krishna is unlimited. What does it even mean? Krishna is unlimited. Just like Krishna is unlimited, Bhakti is also unlimited. It's a Shakti, Bhakti Shakti.
So what should be the mood of us when we are a particular service is done now? So what should be the mood of us?
Like Prabhupada,
Should I?
like Prabhupada, you can see here, right, in the what we read today. Okay, we have done a particular service. Let's double it. The book distribution where Prabhupada would here, okay. 1 million books are distributed. Okay, double it, make it 2 million, like that. That should be our mood. Okay, we have done something now. Let's double it. I mean, see, the point, the result is ultimately not in our hands. But the mood should be that let's try to constantly keep increasing our activities in devotional service. That's why Prabhupada repeatedly said, no, that all this sleeping, all this resting, all this is tamoguna, he says, right? That's why the Goswamis and all, they don't rest and all that. They're constantly chanting. They think even that half an hour resting that they're doing is waste of time. So that's the mood of the Goswamis. We are not in that level though. But Prabhupada says that, right? Advancement in Krishna consciousness means eating, sleeping, mating, defending, all of them become nil. The sleeping also becomes nil. But there's nothing called rest in Krishna consciousness. It is only more activity, it's more and more and more and more activity. But because we are not on that platform, when we try to imitate, our health suffers. But the Goswamis had no health problems. They were only sleeping half an hour a day, eating a little bit of your buttermilk, drinking a little bit of buttermilk. Because they have state of consciousness. So there's nothing like, yes, we finished, we have given 100%. No. It is a constantly ever expanding. Bhakti, devotional service is constantly ever expanding. We should constantly think, okay, I've done this now, let me do more now. Let me do more, let me do more, let me do more. Like Rupa Goswami says that when I chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, how I wish that I had millions of tongues and millions of ears. That should be our mood. How I wish that I had millions of hands, millions of legs that I could serve Krishna more and more, more and more, more and more, more and more.
Thank you for inspiring me, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
On the other hand, I think I brought this up in a previous class, especially after Kadam Kannan Maharaj's disappearance, that he makes a very important point that we should not be thinking, oh, I'm falling short here, I'm falling short there, I'm falling short. We cannot, if you start getting into that, it's tamoguna. You're trying to get into the mode of lamentation. Instead of thinking I'm short here, I'm short there. Okay, I'm short here, I'm short there. But I should take more shelter, more shelter, more shelter. That's it. Instead of focusing on how I'm short and how much deficient I am, instead of that, let's focus on I need to take more shelter, more shelter, more shelter. That awareness of the fact that I'm short should propel us to take more shelter. It should not propel us to be depressed. Awareness is good, but it should propel us to take more shelter. And one very important point I wanted to make was that, just as I was speaking now, I just remembered that, see, in material life is characterized by hankering and lamentation. We're constantly hankering for what we don't have and lamenting for what we have lost. We should not transfer the tendency once we come into spiritual life. Oh, there are so many opportunities. This devotee is getting that opportunity. That devotee is getting that opportunity. That devotee is traveling everywhere and preaching. That devotee is giving nice classes. All these things. So let me try to become like this, like that, like this. Why all these things? Not necessary. All this is material, just material consciousness. We should be satisfied in the situation that Krishna has provided us. And we should think, let me take full shelter of Krishna in the circumstances that Krishna has placed me in, instead of trying to constantly change our circumstance. In the sense that, okay, so this hankering and lamentation, oh, how I wish I had a better house, how look at the devotee, has a better house, he's able to chant nicely, he can do japa in his house even during lockdown, whereas I have a cramped house. Just giving a simple example. So like that, so we can transfer our hankering and lamentation to spiritual life and have this. We should not carry. And that means the same material mentality. So once we come to Krishna consciousness, we should be satisfied. Krishna has put me in this situation. Let me take full shelter of Krishna. So instead of that, if we start comparing ourselves with devotees and their circumstances and the situations and their opportunities, then we are getting into anchoring and lamentation, which is material. So the basic starting point in Krishna consciousness is whatever situation that Krishna has placed me in, that is the best situation for me to practice Krishna consciousness. And Krishna will change it according to his will, whatever is best for my Krishna consciousness. So that is called being a puppet in Krishna's hands.
Thank you, Prabhu. Can I ask a question in a related matter?
Yes, Prabhu.
How do we know to tell the difference between a signal Krishna is giving for us not to continue with something compared to continuing with determination despite perhaps Krishna's signal that he doesn't want us to continue with something? So our ego, to say, not ego, but our determination to do something, even as service, when Krishna perhaps wants otherwise. How do we know the difference?
Okay, personally in my life, what I have done is that it's very difficult for us to determine by ourselves because we don't know what is the dictation of the mind and what is dictation of Krishna. They appear quite similar quite often. So that dilemma comes up of what is the right thing to do. So what I have done in my life is that seek the advice of advanced Vaishnavas. Now, the problem with that is that sometimes I've seen that devotees, they consult 4 or 5 different Vaishnavas, superior Vaishnavas. And then they try to weigh it out, balance it out, and finally come with a conclusion of their own and then do it. No, that's not our system. What I normally do is that, of course, if my spiritual master is there, I just ask him, but it's not possible that every time that happens for everyone. Some people it can happen, some people it cannot happen. So what previously, before, when I did not have the opportunity to serve my spiritual master like this and ask him questions like this, so what I would do is that I would just depend on superior Vaishnavas who I respect. So even though they may not be perfect or whatever, but I know that they're more advanced than me. As long as I know that they're more advanced than me, it does not matter whether they are fully perfect or not perfect. So what I would do is that I would go and ask one person, not multiple Vaishnavas. I would go and ask one person, whomever, whatever is that particular circumstance. Like, I don't know, I'll give you a simple example. Like when my son was born, my first son was born, he was only about 3 months or so, or 4 months, I think. And we had to travel to attend something. And I was not sure whether I should do it or not do it because it may harm the health of the child or whatever. So then I was thinking what to do. So I was just going to the temple of Radha Madhav, and at that point I saw Hanumat Prekshak Maharaj, and he was chanting his rounds outside. Not chanting his rounds. I think yes, he was chanting his extra rounds because it is around Sandhya Arati time, 5:30 in the evening. He was just chanting, and he's a Vaishnava whom I really respect. Although I don't have a deep, intimate, personal relationship, nothing. But I've met him a few times, talked to him a few times. There's somebody whom I respect. So at that point, I thought, okay, here is a dilemma in my mind. Here is an advanced Vaishnava. Let me just go and ask him. But I went to him prepared. If he says, do it, I will do it. If he says, not do it, I will not do it. Either way, whether he says, yes, do it or not do it, my mind has arguments in both directions. As far as my mind is concerned, I have arguments to do it and I have arguments not to do it. So even after Maharaj said, okay, go ahead and travel. Even then, the mind kept on proposing to me, no, but if you travel, all these things. But then I said, there is no end to it. So then I have to listen. He has given me some instruction. Let me just do it. That's what pleases Krishna. So ultimately, it's our Krishna consciousness is all about pleasing Krishna. So we can always present it to some advanced Vaishnava, whomever we have faith or respect. And finally, with the idea that by telling Krishna that I don't know what to do now, so I'm just going to a superior Vaishnava, and I'm going to take it that whatever this Vaishnava is going to tell me, I'll just take that as Krishna's direction. Because Prabhupada gives the example that in a military, in a war, you have commanders. And he says that a commander, whatever he gives directions, if you act according to that direction, the government will reward you. Now, it is not necessary that the command given by the commander is the most perfect but it is bona fide. And if you acted in accordance with that command, then the government is pleased. So Prabhupada gives the example. So I will always take it like that. I'm not interested in knowing whether this is the most perfect solution or the most perfect answer or the most perfect thing to do. That is not a matter of concern to me. My matter of concern to me is a superior Vaishnava, clearly, unambiguously telling me this is what I should do? Then fine, finished. Then whether it is the most perfect thing or not doesn't matter anymore, because Krishna recognizes that. That's the way I personally used to solve situations in the past. Nowadays, I do have the good fortune of asking my spiritual master, but not everyone may have it. So in general, the principle is an advanced Vaishnava. It's not that if you have one Vaishnava to ask all the questions, perfect, wonderful. But even if you don't have one Vaishnava whom you can go and ask all the questions, but for everything that there is a dilemma, you can always have an advanced Vaishnava, different advanced Vaishnava, whatever, for different things. But it would be good to bounce it off someone, and then whatever advice they give, to just take it. That's it.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very sound advice. Thank you very much.
Like, for example, like what happens is that because a mind is like a lawyer, it will present both sides of the argument, So then, how do you, like in a court, Prabhupada says that the lawyers, both of them are arguing based on scripture. Okay, this one, that, both of them are arguing based on law books. But then the judge finally gives a judgment. Okay, this is what it is, finished. And then we just take it like that.
Thank you. Because the problem is that if one tries to rely on one's Paramatma guidance, you don't really know whether it's the Paramatma or your ego speaking in your mind. You quite often tell yourself, this is, I think, what Paramatma wants me to do, when it's actually your mind and ego pointing you.
Yes, it's correct.
That's very simple. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay, so if there are no further thoughts or reflections or questions, we'll end our session for today and we'll resume again next Sunday. Thank you all very much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavyo namo namaha. Shrila Prabhupada ki jai.